We call it people technology.
インテル入ってる。
Job done then for the Mumbai Indians. They pick up a couple of points, so they're happy to get away from the Chepauk and at a new ground in Delhi. It looks more like the defending champions that we're so used to seeing over the years. They've done the job against the Rajasthan Royals. We'll look back at that game and we'll also build up Delhi Capitals against KKR. It's a double-header this Thursday on Andre Russell's birthday on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket Info T20 Timeout, powered by Intel. Before I get thoughts from Dan Vettori and Dale Steyn, a message, of course, to all our viewers, in particular in India: do mask up in public, follow social distancing and self-sanitizing protocols, and if you are eligible, please do take your vaccine as soon as possible. Right? Let's look back at the first game first up. And while both these teams, Dale, went into this game with 2 wins each and weren't quite happy with the first 4 or 5 games, this showed the gulf between the two teams, I guess. Very easy for Mumbai.
Yeah, I think even though Mumbai had lost a couple games, they still looked pretty strong. You know, Chennai was a tough wicket to bat on, and they just never kind of found their groove. But they haven't made massive changes in their staff in terms of playing 11, and they've looked fairly good, settled. They've never looked like they've been under pressure or panicked or anything like that. And they just needed a performance like today. Change a wicket, and they look the professional outfit that they are. Pretty much the same way that Chennai have been going about their business. Mumbai just, they just came out and did the job today. Whereas Rajasthan, a little bit hot and cold this season so far. Lots of players leaving, injuries and that kind of stuff. They've had a lot more disruption in their camp.
Yeah, that one change that they did make, specialist batsman out and overseas bowler in, that batsman would be feeling a little hard done by. Good game to get your form back, Dan.
Yeah, you'd look at that wicket, almost had a sheen on it, did it nice and flat. But I think Dale's word's right. That's the professional performance that we expect from Mumbai, and they looked a class above Rajasthan, and they showed why, no matter the situation they were in with only 2 wins, that every other team would fear them. And every commentator like us still talks them up, because we know the talent that's within that playing 11 and that playing group, and it can come to the fore at any time, particularly on a good wicket like tonight.
Quinton de Kock had 47 runs in 4 innings before this one, and no one ever questions de Kock's value or place in this Mumbai team. He just fits so well. But it's always nice for a key overseas player to get a big score in the first half of the tournament. Do you think that'll be one little monkey off his back, Dale?
Yeah, Quinny is the kind of guy that if you know him, you'll know that these kinds of things don't bug him really. He get out for naught, he walks into the dressing room, he messes around with his bat, he's chewing on some bottle cap or something like that. He's such a strange human. I love him so much. But inside, he loves the game so much. He actually really wants to do well. And I'm sure he'd have been a little bit gutted that he didn't put in a big performance so far. So today's innings will really just kind of kickstart him. He also is a bit of a form player. Once he starts to score runs, you start to see him get better and better and better, like most players in the world, but Quinny especially. He's just one of those guys. So I'm sure he'll be happy to get this one off his back right now.
RCB didn't wait long enough to see this effective side of him, Dan, with Quinton de Kock.
Yeah. It was a good trade for Mumbai in the end. Yeah. They got him there, and I think the thing that we always forget to talk about Quinton de Kock is his keeping. I think he is the best keeper in the world, and it goes underappreciated. And I know that franchises, I know RCB in particular, valued that highly as keeping, because it adds so much to a game, and over the course of a tournament, it can contribute massively to the success of a team, and we don't talk. I don't think we talk about it enough, just because he makes it look so easy. But his total all-round game, and he's a leader on the field too. He helps out a lot. He understands angles better than most, so he brings an all-round package to it, and that's what you need in T20 cricket.
Krunal Pandya walked in at 4. Nice little cameo for him with the bat, but was that a bit of a surprise that Hardik Pandya, a good opportunity for him to actually get some batting form, find some batting form, didn't come in higher, Dan?
Well, I thought we talked about the start of the innings. We thought that the batting lineup may be a little bit more set in stone, but it may be as simple as Tuatia was bowling and they wanted 2 lefties to go at him to put a little bit of pressure on them. I'm surprised that Rajasthan didn't counter with someone like Rian Parag to bowl 1 over or 2 overs, but Pandya showed that he is a class player as well, and he's probably another guy who hasn't had the opportunities to get as many balls as he'd like because of the role. He's been down at 6 or 7, but it shows that strength of the Mumbai team. And once again, that word professionalism. They have guys who can adapt to every situation and be professional enough to bat somewhere different in the order.
I guess, Dale, as the takeaway now also we're seeing in the last couple of days, teams that are in the bottom half or that need to challenge the likes of Chennai, Mumbai, you can't afford to slip up. Rajasthan had 4 to 5 guys play a good innings, and Shivam Dubey's innings probably cost them 15, 20 runs, and that could very well be the difference when you play a Mumbai or a Chennai.
Oh, very well. I think so, but I think Mumbai just little masterstroke there, sending in Krunal. They played in Chennai where they realized that it was so difficult in the last 5 overs to get going, where they probably thought today, let's take a little punt, let's send in the left-hander to the leggy, and let's try and score some runs quickly. If he doesn't get going, we've still got Kyron, we've still got Hardik to come. And it worked for them tonight. The wicket was too good for him not to do well. But Rajasthan and those teams that are sitting now at the bottom, they need to play above average or above their best kind of game when they're playing against teams like Mumbai and CSK. And if not enough guys pitch up on the day, then they're going to be found wanting. And that's exactly what happened today.
Right. Well, we've got another game to look forward to. Action moves to Ahmedabad as we focus on Delhi against Kolkata. Toss has already taken place. Rishabh Pant's won it. Delhi are going to chase again. They nearly pulled off a cracker of a chase against Bangalore a few nights ago amidst a sandstorm that followed an AB de Villiers special. How many times have we said that in the history of the IPL? But here they are now against Kolkata, who also started on a winning note against Punjab in Ahmedabad at least. So 2 teams that Delhi look a little better than Kolkata, but a toss that goes Rishabh Pant's way. I was wondering if that chase gone short, or I wouldn't say gone wrong, Dan, would have tempted Delhi to have a bat first and have a crack, but it looks like everyone's still comfortable or more comfortable chasing at these new venues too.
Yeah, and I think there'll be the conversation around dew. There may be a conversation around a sandstorm. So there's a lot of weather factors that come into play at Ahmedabad, but also I suppose the track record of teams winning the toss and fielding seems to be the consensus around doing that. And Delhi got really close in the last game as well. So I think they'll be feeling good about themselves, particularly the way they bowled. I think anytime you can restrict a team of RCB's class to 170, then you're pretty happy. And they'll probably feel the same way about bowling to KKR with their formidable lineup, albeit slightly out of form.
Yeah, they made one change, have the Delhi Capitals. Amit Mishra has some sort of shoulder injury, says Rishabh Pant, and Lalit Yadav returns. So they have a little more batting, you think, and the off-spin option of Lalit Yadav. But the change I'd like to talk to you about, Dale, is the one that hasn't been made. I thought we're getting closer and closer to watching Anrik Nokia make an appearance this season after the kind of season that he's had. It just seems like he can't get into this side.
Yeah, shame. I feel for him, and I feel for KG too, because like we've said, I think they kind of work beautifully together. But Avish Khan has done nicely for them so far. You can't fault him. He's bowled really beautifully. And Ishan came in the other night. Ishan Sharma came in the other night, and I thought he bowled really well. For somebody who's been on the sideline for a little bit of the tournament, he came in and he came in hot. He didn't come in cold. He came in, he got a wicket up early, and he looked good. But yeah, it's another big game tonight for these boys, and it would have been nice to see Anna out there. Been actually watching a little bit of fast bowling on YouTube every now and then, and Anna's name's popped up a couple times, and it would have been nice to see him in the flesh tonight.
It's very rare or unusual for a franchise to see a player have a big season and then not start him the next. It can happen with overseas balances, but just looking at how well Anrik Nokia bowled, Dan, is it surprised you as to how he's not been able to break through this 11?
Well, it shows you how much time passes if you miss one game or 2 games. And I know Nokia was under a COVID scare, I think, at the start of the tournament. So he was out of the team environment, out of that training bubble, and just a little bit away from the team. And Delhi got off to a good start, and they've rewarded those guys who've performed. And so I think everything moves on so quickly in the IPL that you think you know something at the start of the tournament, and then it changes midway through. And also the fact that I think Delhi will, in the back of their mind, say at some stage of this tournament, we're going to introduce them, and it's going to be such a, I suppose, a surge of pace and something different that they'll be able to bring to the table. So whilst it's going well for them as a team, they don't need to introduce him. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's not too far away.
In any other team, Dale, could a team would have looked at Rabada and said, 5 wickets in 5 games, and he's been expensive. Let's bring in Noke. But because it's Rabada, you almost can't think of it. You think Rabada's always going to play, even if he's had 3 or 4 or 5 ordinary games.
Yeah, he's too good. He's a high class player. So even if he's had a couple bad games, that he's going to come good at some time. And he bowls, we mentioned it about the earlier game. These guys, when they're the best in the world, Trent Boult, Rabada, these guys, they bowl Cummins. They bowl in the most difficult times of the game. So consistency becomes in 2020 becomes really difficult. Cummins also hasn't exactly set the IPL up alight with the ball just yet, but KKR know what he's capable of, and they're running with him too, as well as Rabada. So tonight could well be his night. And Lockie Ferguson is also another guy. I mean, I'm a big fast bowling fan, obviously, so I'm keen to see these guys come and bowl really quickly. But at some point in this tournament, they will be used. And we've also seen guys like Imran Tahir, who's obviously complete the opposite end of the scale. He's a spinner. But I think in 2019, he was the Purple Cap winner. And then last year, he almost didn't get a game until the very back end of the IPL. So it's IPL is kind of weird. It has its ebbs and flows like this. And these guys will get an opportunity to go at some point.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most succinct way to sum up this great tournament. The IPL is kind of weird, isn't it? Yeah. KKR don't make changes. And Andre Russell is someone who'd be very happy to not see an Andrik Nokke in the opposition, you'd think. Maybe a little bit of a birthday gift from the Capitals. Russell turns 33 today. And I don't know if you guys happened to see his Instagram a couple of days back and how he brought his birthday in. It was a 2 a.m. post from Andre Russell that had him just display a very famous Indian dark rum. So just another day in the pre-training or IPL of Andre Russell, Dan, from whatever you know of him.
Well, it's good you can get rum in the bubble. I think that's important to know that that's still available to the players, because that's obviously important. I think the most interesting thing will be KKR's batting lineup. What actual order they come with, where they use Narayan, and where they use Morgan, Kartik, and Russell. And so there's a lot of moving parts in that batting order, and they're all incredibly impressive players. So how they utilise them in their most effective way is probably going to be the defining point for KKR's batting.
How should they? I mean, this is a batting team that was lucky to chase a below-par score last game, but you've got Narayan. You're not quite sure if you want to use him at the top again. So there's this new theory that your friend Brendan McCullum's tried of sending him in at the fall of the first or second wicket, or even just after the power play. Would you go that way, Dan?
Well, I'm a big fan of Owen Morgan. I almost feel like he's underutilised at times because he's got this finisher tag, and he'll come in at the back end and hit it. But because he's such a good player, I'd love to see him after that power play and be able to take on take on the spinners, maybe negate a little bit of Axar Patel if he's bowling at that stage. So that's the way I go. But I think they're going to stick to him in that back end of it, and then ebb and flow with Russell and Narayan, depending on what the matchup is. But when you have all those resources, it actually becomes tricky to know when the right time to use them all are, because they're all such good players.
But there is a tendency that KKR, whether it's coming from the behest of Russell or of KKR, it seems like there's almost that mark that they have a 10, 12 over mark or so, 13th over mark. Before that, they don't want Russell, no matter what the situation. Is that missing a trick just a bit for you, Dale?
I think that's the perfect spot for him to come in. I heard an interview with him recently where he said he wants to come in around the 13th, 14th over. So he wants to give himself a couple overs to get in, and then he can really launch from there. So he's probably expressed that to KKR and the management, and they've taken that on board. But they like Dan says, when they've got so many players that kind of fill all the same roles, they can all bat at 3, they can all bat at 4, they can all bat at 5. They all can fill in the situations that they need. DK is really good at the end with these little laps and little use of the pace to score boundaries. Owen Morgan is a great finisher. Russell's a great finisher. So it really boils down to how they want to use these guys, and can be a bit tricky at times. Narayan is probably the best time to bat Narayan would be in the first 6 overs. Outside of that, it's really hit and miss. Once the field starts to spread in Ahmedabad, bigger field, he's probably not going to be as as good as what he would be in the first 6 overs. So bit of a headache for them, but when they do get it right, they look like a team that can really go all the way. As long as they all tick.
One thing you wouldn't mind is Marcus Stoinis bowling the 20th over to him, the way he did to AB de Villiers last time around. And I find it curious that these things happen, so that it seemed to be a pivotal moment in the game between Delhi and Bangalore. 23 was scored of a well-set AB de Villiers. And Dan, it's the first year for Rishabh Pant, the captain, and he's got great experience in Ricky Ponting in the dugout. And yet we have seen a couple of times, not just with the Delhi Capitals, but captains almost miscalculating overs, or whether it's strategic to bowl a fresh bowler towards the 19th, 20th. How much of this is pre-decided? How much of this is instinct? And why does it look almost amateurish at times when your specialist bowlers have all bowled out by the 18th, 19th over, and suddenly you've got to do something like what Pant did in the last game?
Well, I think when that situation happens, it's normally because the team's gone all-out attack to try and disrupt teams' plans, and obviously all-out attack against RCB is trying to get Maxwell and de Villiers out. So sometimes you use up your resources a little bit earlier to try and dismiss that, knowing that if you get de Villiers out or you get Maxwell out, then almost anyone can bowl the 20th over. They can be effective, but we see the flip side of that style of captaincy when it doesn't quite work, and Stoinis is matched up against an AB de Villiers, and it doesn't look like a fair fight. So I can understand the logic going into it, but I think you have to accept that 20th over is going to happen from time to time when you're prepared to attack for the first 18, 19 overs.
Come to think of it, this seems to always almost happen against AB de Villiers. You had KKR bowling Harbhajan to AB de Villiers in the 19th over in Chennai. You've had Marcus Stoinis bowling to him. So I don't know if it's AB that messes up plans for captains, Dale. Wouldn't surprise me if he does. But as bowlers, you'd think at least important overs, 1, 2, 3, and maybe 18, 19, 20 are almost always a plan that's set, whether you're bowling first or second.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is set. You kind of have an idea that who you're going to use in your 18th, 19th, and 20th. But like Dan said, they wanted to strike, and that's what they brought their bowlers back that they would have used during that period to try and get a wicket. If you can get AB out in the 16th over or the 17th over, then you don't have to worry about him in the 19th or 20th. And one of those overs is going to happen at some point. But I think Rishad, he could have used Mishra in that last over. It's a bigger field there. If you had to go and ask AB before the game, who would you prefer to face in the 20th over? Yeah. Marcus Stoinis running in and bowling 120 k's an hour, or somebody who can kind of spin it and beat him with a googly and everything. We've seen Rashid Khan bowl a super over, and it being difficult to Delhi Capitals actually. So, I mean, he could have, but it's AB de Villiers at the end of the day. He could have chalked the first one, got caught cover. It would have been a masterstroke. But these things can happen from time to time. We've even seen Moses open the bowling, and we didn't think that he was going to do anything, and bang, he got a wicket against KKR the other day. So these things can happen.
Like you say, the IPL is weird, right? Simple as that.
That is weird. Cricket is weird.
You think there is a bit of a plan for Andre Russell, though? And would that straight up be Rabada? Anyway doesn't like bowling in the power play, just the numbers suggest so, which is also something that I don't understand. Maybe we can spend a couple of minutes on that as to why Rabada doesn't have the sort of numbers in the power play that a lot of fast bowlers do. He tends to get his wickets mainly outside of that. But Russell v Rabada seems to be the contest of the day, Dan?
Well, I think most teams plan around, can we go short and off pace to Russell, and do we have a leg spinner that can attack him in that first 6 balls? And I think of the RCB, it was always Chahal trying to bowl wide and spin it and seeing if he could get one to hit one straight up in the air. So I think those are the normal 2 modes of attack. I think teams at the moment are a little bit more confident to be aggressive to him, and they're probably taking him on a little bit because they don't see that form that he displayed in previous IPLs. But if you see Russell at his best, you need a fast bowler to counter him, to be able to go straight and short at him, and then to have the ability to take the pace off to try and confuse him.
Rabada, someone who can you explain that notion, Dale? Most bowlers like the new ball. Rabada in T20 seems to do well everywhere but the power play.
Well, when he's played for the Proteas, he's actually done really well in the power play, from what I remember. But it's strange, IPL, different wickets, different players, different plans. I'm not quite sure. I haven't played with him in the same team as the IPL, so I'm not too sure what's going through his mind. But I know that he'd be thinking the same thing: run in, hit a hard length, try and get a wicket. You know, that's what he's paid to do. Strike bowler. You know, especially in the early stages of the game. The back end of the game, that kind of goes out the window a little bit. It's more defensive, and if you get a wicket or two, like when a guy misses a Yorker or skies a slog that he's missed, that's a bonus. But when you're bowling your first 2 overs, especially in the first six overs or even up to the 12th over, your captain is asking you to strike. Sometimes you can go for runs because it's a little bit more aggressive fields. You might bowl an aggressive line and length, you know. So that could be the case. Yeah, in South Africa, there's always a bit of swing and nip, so he is effective inside the first 6 with a new ball. Outside of South Africa, different story.
Ishan Sharma has new ball in hand. He had a pretty good game last time around. Dale, ever been part of an Andre Russell birthday bash sometime during the IPL or otherwise?
I haven't been, but I played in the same CPL team as him in Jamaica, and I can promise you right there, that is a headache every morning the next day. It's every game.
Can vouch for
He's a
that.
great teammate.
Maybe for you more than him. He seems to be fine. All right, let's pick up this chat after the KKR innings. Let's see if Russell can light up the Ahmedabad Stadium today. Dan Vettori, thank you very much. That's a hard day's work done for you. We'll see you again very soon on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout, powered by Intel. We have the Intel Fastest Fan First contest as well. That's still running. So head over to the ESPN Cricket Info Facebook page if you fancy your chances of winning some prizes by answering a few simple questions. That's where you need to go, the Facebook page of ESPN Cricket Info. A reminder, of course, to all our viewers in India, you can catch Vivo IPL highlights and live action on Disney Plus, Hotstar, and of course, to our viewers in India, these are still testing times, so don't let that mask down in public. Follow social distancing and self-sanitizing protocols, and if you are eligible, please do take your vaccine. Enjoy the cricket. We'll pick up the chat in 20 overs.
We call it people technology.
インテル入ってる